We did this in person at City Lights Bookstore for many years, and there is this pandemic, which is complicating things a wee bit. So we are doing it virtually. And we have, let's see what we have here. We have 8 readers listed at the moment, counting Gary, who is going to wrap us up. So I'm going to ask you to keep it to about 5 minutes.
Okay.
And I realize that is difficult for those of you who read prose, especially fiction and nonfiction, but please do try to keep it to 5 minutes. And if you go much over that, I'm afraid I will get out the hook and try to pull you off the stage,
Well,
which is very painful for all concerned. So let's not do that.
Yeah.
And if you wish to read and you have not yet said so, please post your name in the chat and I will call upon you in the order in which you posted it. And we are going to begin with Avram Friedman, who is a longstanding member of this coalition and who has written various trenchant political screeds, as well as a heartrending saga of the analogies between plumbing and life in general. So Avram, why don't you get started?
Yay!
Thank you. I have written a new book during the pandemic. This is the title. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, if only that happened a few months ago.
So Asteroid Hits White House is the name of the book, and I have completed the book, and I'm about to publish it. It's for those, a little background information, and I know this is going to cut into my 5 minutes, but on November 2nd, the day before the election last year, the Earth almost was hit by an asteroid. This is a fact. And NASA said they weren't certain if it was going to hit. Anyway, it ended up missing the Earth by about several thousand miles. And this book is about an alternate universe where the asteroid does hit. And it's the last day before the election, and President Ronald Trump is in the Midwest campaigning. He's in an airplane. And the NASA administrator is attempting to get in touch with him to tell him that the asteroid is about to hit the Earth. And he has to go through his chief of staff, Clark Meadows, on the airplane. So at noon, 7.5 hours before the asteroid impact, NASA Chief Administrator Jim Bridelstein again dialed the number for the president's chief of staff, Clark Meadows. It's the second time he's called. Meadows here. What the hell is going on there, Meadows? I need to talk with the president immediately. Did you relay my early message to him? There's a sizable meteor headed toward the Earth, and it looks like there will be a direct collision somewhere in the mid-Atlantic region, possibly on the coastal mainland of the United States. We need direction from the president himself on which military and civilian personnel to inform so we can begin making contingency plans to protect national security. Without the president's explicit permission, the military is out of the loop, the news media is in the dark, and the public will be completely uninformed and unprepared for the events that may follow. Sorry, Jim. The president has been indisposed and will be continue to be so for the rest of the day. He's in the middle of a series of campaign events and doesn't want to be disturbed in between appearances. Tomorrow's election day, you know. If you have further information, give it to me and I'll pass it on to him when he allows access. Are you hearing me, Meadows? I don't give a damn what the president is doing. I need to talk with him immediately. This is a potential national emergency. Force your way into his room if you have to and tell him I need to speak with him and do it now. I don't take orders from you, sir. I take orders from the president, and he doesn't want to be disturbed today. What the hell is wrong with you, Meadows? If your job to confront the president, it's your job to confront the president with critical information when it comes to your hands so the agencies under his command can get the green light to perform the emergency duties. If you don't have the rocks to confront the president when it's needed, then step aside and give the job to someone who can. Get your ass in there and tell the president I need to talk with him now. Meadows hesitated, somewhat shocked by Bridelstein's words and invective. Okay, I'll try now. I'll give you a call back, Bridelstein. He ended the call as his feet hurriedly moved toward the president's door. He knocked twice, then barged in. Sir, Bridlestein says he needs to talk with you right now, and it's urgent. The president and his wife, Sardonia, were apparently in the middle of an intense and hostile discussion about the importance of the two holding hands as they exited Air Force One at each campaign stop. What the hell, Clark? I told you not to disturb me under any circumstances. If you can't do your job the way I instruct you to do it, I may have to find someone else who can. Who the hell is Bridlestern? The chief administrator at NASA, sir. It's about the asteroid, sir. Again, this ridiculous asteroid? It feels like a hemorrhoid to me, Clark. All I want to know about this asteroid is if it hits the ground, will it hurt me or help me win election? Is it a red asteroid or is it a blue asteroid? Can you tell me that, Clark? No, sir, but then tell Bridlestern or whatever his name is that the sky is falling. Scientists can cork this asteroid up their asses until after the election is over, and I'll get back to him when I have the chance. Don't bother me with this again. Got it, Clark? The president put his arm around Meadows' shoulders, guided him out, slammed and locked the door behind him. Meadows felt a sense of panic begin to grow within his knotting gut as through the door he could hear the president and his wife screaming at each other. He could not summon the courage to inform Bridlestein that the president would not speak with the head of NASA at this moment, nor would he dare try to talk with Trump again about this matter, and it wouldn't help if he did. After standing numb and paralyzed for 5 minutes, not knowing in which direction to order his feet, he turned toward the Air Force One lounge, opened the liquor cabinet, and poured himself a tall, stiff shot of 80-proof Kentucky bourbon. He sat in a chair at a table next to a window overlooking Ann Arbor, Michigan, as the plane approached the city's airport at about 20,000 feet, and he contemplated what it would feel like to be in free fall from this height if a man were to exit the plane through a trap door. His soliloquy was interrupted by his cell phone ringtone, hailed to the chief. The caller ID on the screen said, Jim Bridlestein, NASA. He looked hard at the phone, hesitated, then slowly but deliberately hit the ignore button.
Good job, Avram.
Thank you, Avram. Sorry about the muting.
That's all right. Thank you.
Well, we should all beware. No doubt there are meteors out there heading our way, even as we speak.
That's right.
Plus plumbing. So our next reader is going to be Louise Runyon, and take it away, Louise.
Hey, I'm relatively new in town. I moved here from Atlanta almost 2 years ago, and have a lot of family here, and I'm very happy to be here and miss our writing group that we had at City Lights. This first poem is called Where is Our Prague Spring? Where is the tango, the close embrace, so far gone now? Where is the waltz, traveling in tandem, the Cajun two-step, its complicated wrapping of the arms around each other's waists? Where is the rolling around on the floor with other dancers, the taking of someone's full weight over my back, the lifting, the flying, the tumbling, the puppy pile of humans, that dance? Where is my 25-year marriage? When was the last time I was touched? Where are the faces, the mouths, the noses, the chins? Except for my son's or someone's on the other side of the street, gone, say their names. Where is the face beneath the mask, beneath the hat, the sunglasses, the face shield? I forget to look in anyone's eyes if they are wearing a mask. Whose face can I see now, except on the Zoom screen? And there, making eye contact is tricky. Where is the holding of hands, the touching of cheeks, the common breath? Where is our Prague Spring, our Dubček, that flowering of art and government, of commonality and uniqueness that was so brutally crushed? I was there on the other side in the Soviet Union. In 1968, in those hours before the morning we flew out, we heard Soviet planes all night long, flying out of Kiev. What was that about? Arriving in Vienna, we found out people escaped from Czechoslovakia strapped to the underneath of rail cars. It would be 1989 before a new flowering there, the Velvet Revolution. Where is our Velvet Revolution, our Prague Spring? Or as in Estonia, our Singing Revolution? Where is our Enlightenment, our age of science, our Renaissance, our age of reason, our golden era? In this strange age, I live in a fishbowl house of fog. On humid mornings, as mornings here almost all are, the bare trees of winter extend their black limbs through the silvery fogscape. On the few dry mornings, the brown mountains can be seen as the sun rises, shedding light on the few remaining red leaves. The wild turkeys that cross my path, 11 of them, moving so slowly, fully grown, their browns and reds and greens and maybe blues are muted in the woods. It is almost Thanksgiving Day. These 11, hopefully, will survive. At any time of day, one may hear shooting in the woods. I have to ignore it. Oh, that. And this is called, thank you. This is called Once We Were Party Girls. Now we see no one, touch no one, go nowhere, and it's winter. I think, something outside. I don't ski, I do walk, I need more. Something to look forward to, something safe, alive. My friend in Atlanta takes her granddaughter to the zoo. Every week, this is a good idea. There is no zoo here in these mountains. I don't have a granddaughter anyway. But I have this fire pit. It's outside on the terrace. And I have some wood and kindling. I know how to build a fire. I never do, but I could. Tiny parties with just one other person. Maybe that. My mother loved parties through to the end. Even at 103, she had to have them. I don't have to have them, but under the circumstances. Mrs. McElwain used to have parties at Penland. Little dinner parties, just me, my uncle and aunt, held outside. It was summer, of course. A giant slab of lichened rock for her picnic table. She always served canned grapefruit slices, of all things, as an appetizer, in little cut glass dishes. Mrs. McElwain lived in a stone house, mica shining in the road we took to get there. She always told me Mr. McElwain was asleep in a tiny room on the second floor, reachable only by an outside staircase. I always believed her. I could see the little door. My aunt told me later she was only joking, that Mr. McElwain was really dead. My mother and my aunt called her Mackie. Mackie made me merry-go-round birthday cakes, which we took to Roan Mountain for a picnic. Me, my uncle, aunt, and our grown cousin Nancy. Chocolate cakes with chocolate icing, a carousel canopy, tiny plastic horses, and little paper parasols. Mackie was teeny and white-haired, not so far from death herself, but spry. She lived alone in her gingerbread house. I am sure our visits brought her happiness. Mackie kept a rummage sale in the basement of her house, always open, rack upon rack, table upon table. My mother and my aunt loved rummage, loved Mackie's, were in heaven, rifling through the musty clothes in the dim light. My friend tells me on the phone that she and her granddaughter have Tuesday tea parties, Wednesdays at the zoo, ice cream Fridays, something to look forward to. I have dance class Mondays and Wednesdays, Italian Saturdays, poetry Sundays, all on a computer screen in the kitchen. But perhaps I can make a fire in the fire pit outside, invite a friend. I have done it now, once. Mackie, Mrs. McElwain, how you never came to Roan Mountain, how we never invited you. Thank you.
Very nice, Louise.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise, and welcome to the open mic nights. I'm
Thanks.
glad to see you here.
Thanks.
Our next reader is Matt Nelson. Matt is now the second of the representatives for the North Carolina Writers Network West here in Jackson County. And take it away, Matt.
All right, everyone. Glad to be on this thing. The piece I'm actually going to read is something I wrote a while back. I think it was about in October. And it was just the fact that, it's one of my song title poems. For those who don't know, I just take the song titles of just people I like, artists I like, and try to make a long narrative. And if you recognize, the artist, because some of you may have already read this before, don't spoil it until the very end, okay? To all my friends who have gathered here today, you're proof that even the losers can receive a miracle in dark times, providing a feeling of learning to fly beyond the sky into space without the use of a craft, so that the free fallen puts the chaos far away for so much needed solace. It's been too long since our last meeting, and the waiting has been difficult. Without seeing those warm faces who brightened my days of old, so I wouldn't become a refugee in my own skin as days flew by, not knowing my true purpose, leaving dreams out in the cold, hoping for warmth amongst those who brave the storm of society so that their toughest days didn't hurt so much. Leading to good people, giving up was that when the needles and pins drew too close for comfort, and the last glimmer of an almost perfect day instead about to give out, so despair and work its terrible magic. No matter where we are in life, we aren't immune to a sudden breakdown and in dire need of a good friend or two to quell a restless heart that often only beats to preserve life and not to push beyond the echo of dreams long past to see what new light can turn into something big after the journey into the land of forgotten memories, so that we're not between two worlds which can be combined into something wonderful, like a diamond shining from the depths of a coal mine. How many days can anyone last in this bizarre ocean of isolation in limited distances? I know that we have to be safe, but not finding out if those we care about remain in good health and spirits can be its own disease. With the lonely weekends passing by without much word on if the silence won't last long, or if I should try to find different people to share my slice of creativity with, to chase away some of the hometown blues, to see the colors of life for a few brief moments. You tell me if there's another way to deal with this isolation, because I'm at a loss for words at finding inspiration for a future where the dark of the sun lasts too long, leaving our world cold and with not enough joy to see if there are other ways to be wicked in order to pass the time until our next meeting, where we can make that connection through words about our past, given new life, and the stories we could tell to serve as an anchor to not fade away no matter how dark it gets. I think one of the biggest problems with running down a dream when awake is that you have a few too many great sprints mixed with marathons and often no second thoughts on when the next rest stop will be in order, to be good enough to briefly mingle with the elected elite, who in reality are just as fragile as the rest of us. So when the time comes for the next wave of despair, we'll all be heading straight into the darkness, regardless of class or creed, and whoever dares to say that there is no reason to cry has already shed more tears than possible when confronting humanity. I realize this piece sounds a little harsh, but this one's for me to show that I care about my readers who helped me find a special place in this world, and I need to know that such a place still waits. In a world that has too much gray to allow color to emerge from yet another lonesome sundown. It doesn't take much for a change of heart to occur. Even if you feel on top of the shakier world, so think about me and all the others who struggle to find meaning in a time where things are closed in order to provide protection. Yet this isolation, many like myself, strangered in the night, thoughts racing like runaway trains, filled with buzzing insects waiting to find something very different within the sea of normalcy, when the waves are all mixed up so that currents can take anyone to any place, so that the lost children of old can finally grow up into proper adults with compassion intact, even though nothing in this life is built to last. As through constant change, great wonders can be forged to create a new century city when we can live in some peace during a time when there's something in the air strengthening life instead of illuming death. At least I can say you got lucky in this period of isolation with some comely scenery to provide some needed distraction away from the shadow people who pretend there's nothing wrong with our fragile world as they're on the street without protecting themselves and others from the unseen dangers of our current plague. And these poor souls think they have the best of everything, when sadly, their illusion of peace is too good to be true. And when the fantasy comes to an end, I'm uncertain what will happen. And while I won't back down if someone truly needs my support, he said, saying it all work out may be nothing more than hollow words flickering off into the unknown. And said, leading to a wasted life of trying to smile, even though it gets harder to do so as the days pass. To those who have brought me joy in the past, we stand a chance at surviving anything, using the sweet memories of shared laughter for strength. Said, so down the line, if things become much darker, it said, we can be there for each other whenever there is nothing but misery inside, hiding behind many false faces or that first flash of freedom to be able to let out the negative emotions. No matter what happens tomorrow, it said, know this, you and I will meet again to restore our lost magic, meant for doing other things and keeping me alive and not turning me into some zombie for however long it takes to find new joy and others and like others around me. And said, I can't, and said, fight it in being so cut off from my friends. And I wanted to shout, hoping someone will hear me. And somehow a new day will be around the corner with old friends. We'll be glad to say, cry to me. Then I will have open arms for those who also need a little support and silently ask, deliver me from this despair. Said, no matter where we are in life or what we do, we can't stop the sun as it travels across the sky or deny the fact that we're all cracking up. Said, but that only means we're decent human beings trying a little hard to survive. As a little voice from deep inside says, you can still change the world one tender moment at a time and be brave because I'm counting on you to create your own miracles as we journey into the great wide open where the wildest dreams are made.
All right, Matt.
Anyone know who that was?
Nope.
Really? Wow. That was actually Tom Petty.
Ah,
Yeah, weird thing is that my grandparents used to live right across from him before he was, got famous. And just the fact that my grandparents lived in that house for like close to over just about 40 years, that was a pretty good set. So that shows how young Tom was at the time.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
The pandemic is full of isolation and despair, and you're capturing that thoroughly.
Yeah, so I guess we're the heartbreakers in this equation.
I guess we are. Our next reader is Marsha Lee Baker. She has also been a regular at these events. Marsha Lee, tell us about it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad for us to be together again and see folks, even in these situations. Thank you for bravely leading us forward, Catherine. This is a draft of another essay I've started that may stand alone or may be part of a memoir. As usual, who knows? I wouldn't read it yet if it weren't for just a trustworthy group. Realizing my racism. I remember the first racist comment I intentionally made. I was somewhere between being a kid and wanting to be a teenager during the 60s. Old enough to be aware that school was serious, helping out at home was expected, and proper manners were demanded. I decided that if that was what growing up was going to be like, then I wanted to be treated like I was more grown up. I wasn't sure of the most successful way to make my expectation known, so I started paying closer attention to how adults acted and talked compared to kids. At home, in the car, out and about shopping, or anywhere else in public. family, neighbors, friends, whomever, as long as I thought they were older than me. I for sometimes noticed that some adults among family and friends commonly used what back then was never referred to as the N-word to identify Black people they knew of, or didn't know, and just generalized as a population. I want to use the word. Someone's workman was, quote, a good nigger, end quote. And I was expected to understand what that meant. Someone's laundry woman was too. Someone was getting such a great summer tan that she might have to start coming in the back door. After Martin Luther King Jr.'s death, they, quote, were going to keep on making trouble until they got one of their own, a national holiday. Someone's favorite accessory was a cigarette lighter, decorated with a Confederate flag and a grumpy cartoon soldier fuming over hell. When opened to light, it played Dixie. Someone told me she didn't care how nice I thought the boy was who sat quietly in the back of my school bus. I was to never talk with him, invite him to our house, nor anyone else like him. During most of my growing up years, my family lived on Air Force bases. Vacations were always visits to relatives in South Carolina, where both of my parents were born and raised. Air Force bases, in my young experience, all looked about the same. A lot of people lived and worked on base. I was taught distinctions in military rank and uniform, but other than that, I don't remember thinking that about who we were and how we were like different from them. With this exception, if military employees or their spouses were publicly out of order, misbehaving socially, or sliding a protocol, then those people somehow became outcasts until they could make up over time whatever was necessary to recover from the reprimand and embarrassment. Those were things most people, not just kids, couldn't see in plain sight. It was reputations and mistakes that adults talked about in private adult settings. Family travels to and from South Carolina and times living in South Carolina, however, put simple distinctions separately in plain sight. There were, in civilian neighborhoods, Black neighborhoods, or what some people called chocolate towns. When we drove through these Black neighborhoods in civilian rather than military settings, I began to notice at my young age, Black adults were often sitting on their front porches. Maybe some kids too, but the adults caught my curiosity. They seemed to be comfortable, relaxed, not doing much of anything except maybe rocking if they were in a rocking chair, fanning if it were hot, talking or not if someone else was on the porch with them. They were taking it easy, I thought. Somehow they had figured out how to live without all the pressure and responsibility that I had started to feel coming on me when I was at too young an age and going to get worse for the rest of my life. How did they manage it? I decided my keen observation and question presented an opening to talk about my burdensome young life with my mother. This conversation would help her see me becoming more grown up. It was a way to show my adults that I knew how to distinguish one way of living from another. I'd get more respect and freedom. So, driving down the road one day, I told my mother, quote, "I wish I was a nigger." "Why?" she asked after a brief pause and a hint of surprise. "Because they don't care. They just sit on the porch and take it easy. I have so much homework and things to do at home, going from one thing to the other all the time. I want to be more like them." She sort of laughed, sort of chuckled. I don't remember if she said anything. But over decades to come, she said many a time, a reminder of what I had said. and would give herself a good laugh in front of me, and perhaps point out to the adult me that I wasn't nearly so good as I thought I was. Nor was she so bad. I had used the N-word, and I had thought of Black people as lazy do-nothings. Though humiliated by that memory, I never took her bringing it up as an opportunity to at least say, I wish I never said that. I wish I never thought that. Or to ask her whether her mind had ever changed. Always assumed I would anger her. Never thought of a question to open the way. Could not figure out how to keep us both off the defensive. I also remember the first time I was called out for making a racist comment. During the 1980s, in my late 20s, living in Southern California, trying to make an acting career. One day I was in the office area of the Methodist church I attended, chatting with a couple of friends who were also staff members. I was telling them about how excited I was to have attended a recent music concert. Whoa, it was great. I had a great time. I'll never forget it. Although I don't remember who it was I saw now. And I even got a better seat than the one I purchased. As the concert started, I moved to closer unoccupied seats. Wow, I was excited and lucky. They were such friendly listeners. So I kept rolling, hoping to embellish my story. I was also a little worried, I told them, because I was new to this seat switching thing. I mean, it was a risk. I built up my fear for humorous effect, but I did it, even though I was worried that in a few minutes, some big, huge Black man might show up to take his seat, the one I had confiscated. My friends smiled. Then one asked with the calmest curiosity, any reason why the man would be Black? It was the most unpreachy, sincere, honest question asked in the presence of folks I loved, enjoyed, and respected. I was done speechless. I reached inside to ask myself, well, yes, why would he be Black? Why did I imagine this fake threatening person to be Black? I wanted to know the answer for myself as well as to respect my friends with an honest answer that they deserved. So I thought about it and I realized the truth and I answered my friend's question. Because I don't know many Black men. So the unknown made me more worried and scared. He replied with a slight nod of the head. And we all looked at each other in silence and went on our ways. The chat ended, but the memory has never left me. I am grateful for my racism being pointed out to me. I am grateful that my friends did it in such a gracious way. I hope never to forget what I learned from these two conversations.
Wow.
Thank you, Marsha Lee.
Very interesting words.
Very powerful.
Hard to acknowledge our own racism, but it's all we need to.
Yeah.
Our next reader is Tom Baker, also a veteran of these events and of other things as well.
Yeah, but not the Time Lord version.
Wow, hard act to follow. Thank you, Catherine and Chris, for allowing us to be back in here. It's very meaningful to many of us, and a little humbling to some of us that try to step up to the levels that some of you have, and it's great. It's a great opportunity. I've got a memoir that I'm hoping to get out here. It's about 2 years behind. But one of the pieces in there
is a little bit of poetry. Catherine, you can throw rocks at me if you want to, but it's a little tempted poetry here. And it's pertaining to this lovely lady beside me. As I try to explain a few things here in the closing pages, my life with Marsha Lee has been so very wonderful. She is loving, she is beautiful inside and out, and she is understanding. Being loved and understood is a fulfillment of inner peace I have never known. As a combat veteran, it's much needed. I wrote this short piece in an attempt to put words into my connection to this sweet woman. It's called A Shared Journey. She and I passed through time as if in an old sailing ship. Two ships, really. They're high mast bound together with strong cords of love and lust and light. Our sails are a little tattered and worn with patches like scars, but the stitching is solid and our sails catch the wind of life well, moving us forward towards the home port in the light fog of existence. The lighthouse made of hope and peaceful ideals shines through the dark clouds, guiding us away from the perils that line the rocky shores. An old soldier stands guard on the port side of the bound together vessels. His rifle is not at the ready, but slung across his shoulder, just in case. He has several wounds from battles fought both at home and abroad, but his eyes are bright as he scans the future. He rests one scarred hand on the gunwale which sits above portholes protruding slightly rusted cannons. The deck planks groan under his combat boots, sounding like the lonely call of taps. A beautiful woman stands near the railing on the port-bound side of the ship. Her hair shows gray, but her stance is proud as she looks to the sky where white doves flutter about with olive branches clutched in their claws. Her dress is white, and the cloth ruffles in the warm breeze of peace and love. A song of harmony fills the air around her as she scans the future. The great pairing of ships is steered by a single rudder. A hawk and a dove perch either side of the solid oak guidance. The seas are calm compared to the many storms both ships have came through. The sun of love and hope peeks over the horizon, and a warm breeze fills the sails as our ship of togetherness rounds the next bend, always searching. So that's it.
Thank you, Tom.
Nice, Tom.
I feel no impulse to throw a single rock. That is lovely.
Is that in reference to the fact that your spouse didn't decide to participate tonight?
What's that?
Because I honestly would expect, Dr. Gassel to say similar things to you about you.
Well, no, he's not usually here at these events, but who knows?
Yeah. Okay.
So our next reader is pronunciation dubious, Brandon Stodnicki, and he is new to our readings, but he is a friend of Matt's, I believe. So welcome, Brandon.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Thank you. It's inaugural. I've never read my poems in front of a group of people. So
got a bit of a robot
fun.
voice going.
Selection from myself. This is a selection from my self-published book of poems, Bleeding Internally as a Joke. So I will share the link at the end of this. And I wasn't preparing to do this, so I just found a couple of random ones that I liked. This poem is called Runner. I was barefoot when the grass became glass, and I started running, crunching, bleeding my way back to you. Can someone tell me what it's like to breathe deep? Did you know that if you stand outside during a snowstorm, overnight, without blinking, Ice will form on your eyeballs, and you'll be able to see sadness much more clearly. This is called making new friends. Can't speak for all the rubber crystals in my throat. Coughing hello to fallen flower petals, catching little leaves on my tongue, and the butterflies burn up in the sun. Oh, the butterflies burn up in their hate for me. Rubber vomit. Then it's time to collect the roadkill and take it all home. New friends for me, the sweetest stain on the earth. Clogging my throat with the ashes of their ill will. It feels good to stop breathing, and my friends smile at me, and I smile at them, knowing that everything will be okay. Because when I fall down, I'll bounce. When I fall down, I'll be asleep. This is called I'm Sorry. The moon melted and poured into my mouth. I drank it all. I should have spit it out. A glass bead for every day I'm not myself. I don't know where they're coming from, but they're something to collect. Something hears me when I cry. I have to believe it doesn't have claws, but it's hard. It's hard to believe it doesn't have claws. This is called monsters. It is dangerous to draw pictures of monsters you've never seen with your own eyes. This is called I Want to Go Home. I want to go home, where no one recognizes me. This is called I Need You. I need you to describe the dreams you have where I die. And I need you to describe how you feel when you wake up. And I need you to have those dreams. And I need you to wake up. This one is called We Choke on Fairy Dust. We choke on fairy dust. We give the sun a secret name and then forget the name. And shadows never look exactly like what they're shadows of, so we only trust ashes and smoke. Rotten fruit feeding generations of maggots, we watch them and feel jealous. And I remember that I've always only been me, so I dig a hole and fill it with plastic jewels, and then I get in and wait for someone else to take over. And this last one is called The Flowers. Please, take the flowers with you when you leave. They're too beautiful, and I'm too sick. Nurse, how many people have died in this bed? The end.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. I'm glad you are here among us tonight.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
More often.
Yeah. Well, we only just recently reconnected online, and just when I had a few of my friends said come up for open mic, it always worked. I'm thinking if there's got to be one person that got invited, it's got to be Brandon. Just of course, I'm just ashamed that some of the people that I also brought to open mic couldn't make it, because I'm thinking we would fit together like weird pieces of a puzzle.
Weird pieces of a puzzle is basically my whole life. So
yes,
yeah, thanks for inviting me, Matt.
You're very welcome.
Our next reader is George Ellison, who is an award-winning author from Bryson City here locally, and a scholar of Horace Kephart. And George.
And the future might never arrive, and the present is hard to grasp. But the past is always with us as a presence in the marrow of our bones, never seen except as shadows lingering in the corners of our eyes. Shifting dependencies. The natural world is a web of shifting dependencies. All the strands are interrelated to a greater or lesser degree, but our comprehension of it is fleeting and often unreliable. This is because we too are a part of things. Our perspectives are limited. We are, as they say, embedded. So that if we could see the real world, it might well be different than we had supposed. Predisposed. Fiddleheads unfurl from darknesses into predisposed patterns of leaves called fronds, each simple or pinnate with some variation thereof, that conform enough to be classified as a species, even though a closer look reveals that no two things are ever alike, nor should they be. In a recurring dream that I find disquieting, I shuffle aimless along a misremembered path that arcs upward beside a nameless stream, through a dark forest to a vista, almost always shrouded in mist. Above was the stars, where they can be seen, form random patterns, assign meanings as if they were cryptic messages from the dark, otherwise silent depths of the universe. Multiflora Rose.
Good job, George.
Now I'm not through. Multiflora Rose. Like a woman I once knew, your fragrance is always in the air, reminding me of your thorn-laden tendrils and belligerent ways. You always come to stay, even when you aren't invited, and quickly wear out your welcome. But your fragrance is always in the air, and I still think of you, Multiflora Rose. This is the closest I'm going to do one more. This is the closest I'll ever come to writing a country western poem. If any of you are Van Morrison fans, you'll see that I stole just about everything from you. Going away on the last train. I remember the first time ever I saw her. It was summertime and just about to rain. She was wearing a pretty red dress and standing all alone by the garden wall. I saw her walk down the avenue, and I saw her walk down the avenue and pause at the gate roads. I saw her go down by the river and listen to the water flowing to the sea. Someone told me that she was looking for a new place in a faraway land. He said she was scheduled to leave that very night on the last train. When she arrived at the station, I was standing in the shadows. When she sat down by the window, I saw her for the very last time. But I just came to hear the whistle. I just came to see that fiery engine roll out of the station and pass over the river into the darkened land. I just came to say it, God, but I never said hello. And now she's gone away on the last train, headed all alone for her next destination. I do need one more minute. Catherine Stripling, Buyer, 1944, 2017. Kay's gone now, flying with angels over mountaintops, across wide rivers, to that far shore where she patiently waits for each and every one of us to join her when we can. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that about that piece of cake.
Thank you, George. We will always miss Kay.
I think about Kay all the time. She was so supportive of all of us.
It's good to have you with us tonight. Thank you. I think our last reader is probably Gary Carden, and probably he needs no introduction, and probably it would be inappropriate to refer to him as the Prince of Dark Corners, but I hope you have all had the pleasure of hearing Gary before, and you will hear him again tonight. Gary, take it away.
Gary.
You seem to be muted, Gary. Let me see if I can unmute you here.
I got it. Okay. You hear me now?
Yes, we can.
That's good. Okay, y'all can hear me. Okay. Little bit of background. I've written a tremendous amount of stuff about the back bedroom in my old house where I spent most of my childhood reading comic books. And I was kind of a lonely little kid back there and had no friends, no playmates, because everybody that worked in Silva ended up moving to High Point or Gastonia or someplace, and I always lost my playmates. Okay. I'll read you this because I was so proud that it was picked up by a little magazine. They called me and asked me if they could publish it. It was a ham radio magazine. God, I need my glasses. Are they clean? Okay. Let me tell you a story. When I was 5 years old, my Uncle Stoogie won a pink radio at the Cherokee Indian Fair, and he gave it to me. He told me he was worried about me because I stayed in that bedroom all the time reading funny books. Most of them were not funny, but they were wonderful. My bedroom had been Uncle Albert's bedroom, but with the coming of World War II, he joined the Navy and I moved from the old couch where I slept in the living room to that dark, chilly bedroom on the back of the house. What was I doing there in the first place? Well, my mother left me on the porch after my father was murdered. I came to live with my grandparents who were ill-prepared to raise a quirky little kid. They grieved for my father's death for years, and in the meantime, I was in the back room with nothing for companionship except a huge stack of funny books. I stayed there in that dark room much of the time. I spent more time with Submariner, Captain Marvel, Superman, and Plastic Man than I did with other kids because other kids were rare. And when Uncle Stoogie came to see me, he said he had promised my mother that he would. He was upset. I was pale and sickly and not to mention very shy, and so he said he needed to go. I needed to go to the Cherokee Indian Fair. And he dragged me out of that dark room, and we got in his car and we drove to Cherokee, which for me was like visiting a foreign country. I was fascinated by Uncle Stoogie and his Air Force uniform that was loaded with brass and metals. Had a scar on his cheek there that looked like he had pressed a Coca-Cola bottle cap against the flesh until it left the scar. He chewed dentine. He grinned and he asked me 1,000 questions. And we smelled the Cherokee Indian Fair for 2 miles before we got there. It was hot dogs and fried sausage and cotton candy, and that smell hung in the chill October night over the Indian Fair like a cloud. There were Cherokees camped on old blankets and quilts around the fairground. You could hear the Ferris wheel and the merry-go-round. I ate 3 hot dogs and I rode the swings, and then I threw up. And then I ate 3 more hot dogs. And we fished little fish from numbers on their back from a tin tube of rushing water, and I won a stuffed cat. And we threw darts at balloons and shot rifles at metal ducks that fell clack when I hit them. And then we finally played bingo. That's when Uncle Stoogie told me. He says, you see that radio up there on the top shelf? It was a pink radio. I'm going to win that radio, he said. Now, when all this I refer to, when I look back on it, I guess I realized that Uncle Stoogie was drunk. But I didn't know what drunk was. So we played, and we won a big blanket, and I never even got close to winning that radio until Uncle Stoogie, he just bought it. He just got out his billfold, and he told the carny fella, how much is that damn pink radio? And suddenly I had it. And on the way home with my pink radio in my lap, Uncle Stoogie said, hey, kid. Yeah, he talked like that. Sort of like James Cagney. He said, we're just beginning. When we got to my grandparents' home, he knocked down 2 rows of corn in the field, turning his car around. And then he said, I'll see you in the morning. And I didn't know what that meant. But the next morning he woke me up and he said, come on, kid. And the next thing I knew, he had me out there unrolling a huge wheel of copper wire, and we strung an antenna from my bedroom window to the top of Painter Knob, and then we ran it on little white insulators, and then from Painter Knob back to the barn, and then we surveyed our creation, and it winked and whistled in the sun and the wind, and he roughed my hair, and he said, now, kid, we're going to listen to Russia and the Chinese and the Eskimos. It was dark before we were done. But then he plugged that radio in and he hooked it up, and Shazam! That radio was like a great pink night light. And we sat there on my bed and we turned that Turner knob, and it sang and it wept and it squealed. It was wonderful. There was music and sirens and people jabbering and orchestras and a quartet singing, you better get wilder, cream, oh, Charlie. And there was a laughing man who said, from high atop downtown Rose Room in Chicago, we bring you Tommy Tucker time. And then there was a husky-voiced woman who whispered, and she said, are you lonesome out there tonight, big boy, huh? Well, this is your gal Sal, and I'm here to keep you company. And then she sang songs about being alone at night, and somewhere in her serenade, Uncle Stoogie said, well, kid, I'll leave it to you. And he was gone. And I lay in the pink-tinted darkness and listened to the voices singing and shouting. Sometimes I slept, but always I would wake to find my room was singing to me. Hey, I got more to say about my pink radio, but this has gone on too long. Uncle Stoogie's gone. He ended up as a croupier in Las Vegas. But I owe him 1,000 nights of Let's Pretend and the squeaking door. Roma Wines brings you suspense. And Arthur Godfrey singing in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. And the shadow laughed. And he said, the shadow knows. I swapped Clark Kent for Lamont Cranston. And I learned to sing all the words to Hear That Lonesome Whistle Blow. There was a quartet too, and it sung, turn the radio on and listen to the music in the air. And I did. And I'll hush now. Bye.
Wonderful, Gary. Thank you. Bravo.
It's been too long since such words were spoken.
Thank you.
Damn, Gary.
That radio had probably a greater impact on me than any other thing in my entire childhood, other than growing up with grandparents who were in their 60s when they encountered me.
Yeah. I still remember that story you told about, your adventures of going after Pierre. That was a good story.
Tell me, I'd like to know, I was going to ask that one of our visitors there. I guess he's already gone, isn't he? Yeah, he was. He looked familiar. And I think that he was once on the program I had, the Liars Bench. Came up here from Georgia, read poetry, I believe.
That's Lawrence.
Yeah.
I think that was him. Yeah. What was his name?
Lawrence Holden. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like.
Okay.
I thought it might be Lawrence Allman, but maybe not.
Holden.
Yeah.
He's a visual artist, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he had a woman with him that played, I think she played a fiddle. I'm not sure now. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm through. I'll hush.
Yeah.
Good, Gary. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, Gary.
You can never talk too much in our book, Gary.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt, for organizing this. And
yeah.
Glad to see you here.
Yeah.
I hope to see you again.
Well, you guys do know that I started, do have an attachment, a blog attached to the NetWest thing, and I posted pretty much all the poems that I wrote for you guys for during open mic. So, and some of my other friends and teachers really like that too. Saying like, so we really wish we could have been there. I'm like, well, I always told you plenty of time, but just Fridays were a difficult time for them.
Matt, if you would like to put your blog address in the chat, people can see it.
No, it's on camera.
Yeah, you can tell it, but they illustrated it with comic book covers. Wonderful.
Well, I think we will follow Gary's example and we will all hush now, but we will try to do this again next month. Yeah. And I will get with Chris and Ian and find a date, and we will post this once again through City Lights and elsewhere and on the NetWest blog.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Oh, who knows? Maybe
Catherine, and thanks to everybody. There were some great pieces read tonight.
Yeah.
Really good stuff.
Yeah. I gotta say, Chris, you look a lot younger without your beard.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Hug your neck.
Like you could have been your own son. No, just like you look like you could have been your own son. That's how it is.
Oh.
Yeah, that's.
Stop now, Matt.
No.
No. Brandon?
I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah. Where are you?
I'm in
Waldorf at Western, or where are you?
I'm in Waldorf, but I don't know. I have no idea if I'm in Southern Maryland or Northern Maryland. I don't know maps. I'm usually just somewhere.
Southern Maryland.
Yeah. But I'm in Southern Maryland.
In Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah. Good heavens. Man, that's wonderful. Yeah. You've got a strange background behind you. It flickers and jumps like magic all the time. Yeah.
That is work in progress art that I made. Oh. And the end result turned out much, much darker, both in color and content. Yeah.
Okay. Glad to see all of you. Missed you.
Good to see everybody. Thanks for having me.
Missed you all.
It was fun.
Even those of you I've only met tonight.
Stay tuned.
Thank you all so much, and we will try this again in April.
Yes, this would be good things. Anyone has anything?
Shots, everybody.
Don't be a stranger.
Dr. Carter, is the chat line, is that salvage or savable?
Probably.
Yeah, you
It
just
says
hit
it.
select
It
all
says
and
that
then
it's
copy.
recording, so I think
Okay.
so. I think it gets saved,
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
but I'm not 100% sure.
Nothing's 100% sure when it comes to this stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I'm still learning. Matt, thank you so
Yeah.
much for co-hosting. It is lovely to see you here on
Yes,
the ether.
I was able. You can save the actual chat. You just if you right click on it, it'll pop up saying select all or copy, and just select all. That way you can transfer it to
select
whatever medium
all.
you have.
I'll put it over on a Word document so Gary can read the chat.
Yeah.
Select all. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I've selected all. How do I save it?
Just hit then just go to copy, then hit copy. So
Control
right click.
C.
Yeah, just right click it again, then hit copy.
Okay, hang on.
If you do,
Select all.
see,
Right.
Mute yourself.
Oh, you mute. See this? That's a
Okay.
mute. Okay.
Okay.
That's
now
the
mute.
video. Here's your
Copy. Okay, I'm copying.
Is that sort of like castrating yourself?
Where do I copy it to?
You can copy it to Word.
Okay.
Is there anything
Okay,
else?
I can do that.
see, I'm going to open your
Control in, control. Okay. All right. I have got it saved to a Word document. I'm not sure how to get it to you all, but it exists.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it too.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. No
For
problem.
this.
Dr. Carter, if you can't get it, let me know and I'll send it out to you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
We will pace this along.
Being Gary's tech staff doesn't pay well, but it's entertaining as all hell.
Yes.
I believe you.
And this
All
stuff.
right.
I'm losing my
All
voice. It's changing on me.
Yep.
I don't like that.
All right. We will see you next time. Have a lovely evening and a good weekend.
Good night,
All right,
everybody.
you too.
Have a good one.
Good night.
Stay healthy.
Yep.
Yes, everybody stay healthy.
All right. You guys good? If you guys have anything else to talk, just shoot me an email if you have it.